I just watched this movie last night and I really enjoyed it. Like it was such an interesting, powerful movie that like when it starts, it went into different directions than I expected, but like I was in for it the whole time. I thought it was really good. So for my question, I'm just kind of curious if you can tell me a little bit how you kind of got involved with this project, Deadly Vows. Like, what's the story of how you got cast in this movie and what made you want to play this character?
A producer I had worked with named Carmel Bordellini, who produced a film that I directed called Interior Hallway Night, which is coming out soon, had sent it to me and introduced me to Bella. And when I realized that this, very gripping story about this woman who survives the Iran-Iraq War to relocate and start her life over in Beverly Hills gets into a, very complex relationship, ultimately finding she has a price on her head, as perpetrated by her husband, um, and how she survives that, and more so how she overcomes the trauma and the realization of that tragic turn of events through the power of forgiveness is what really moved me about the story. Like her survival mechanism was fascinating. And I think a lesson that needs to be told today, and the fact that it's based on true events was equally gripping to me. So I wanted to throw in and, support this story and be this kind of calming force in her life, which was the detective Manny, and help her through the physical and logistical journey of survival. And then, he was even moved by her uh, choices and affected by her emotionally intelligent approach to managing it after the fact. I thought those were really cool themes.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I'll say that's kind of something that moved me. Like the movie starts, it's about domestic abuse, which is like a really heavy, like hard topic. It's like the movie is very clear. It's not something to be swept under the rug, and it deals with it in a very like real heavy way. And I thought that was just like there was a lot of intensity and truth to that. So kind of just like bouncing off what you said, when you were reading the script for Deadly Vows for the first time and kind of preparing for this role, was there anything that like really kind of stuck out to you? Like, yes, like this is the moment we need to make sure that like people understand this and get this. Like, this is an important movie to for people to see.
Um, well, there wasn't one particular moment. Though I've made my share of thrillers and, maybe horror and played some, fairly despicable characters. There's always a cautionary tale in there, and there's always a journey and a lesson to be learned. I'm not a big fan of celebrating or, platforming violence of that nature, especially perpetrated towards women. However, in this case, the fact that it was a true story needed to be explored, and the journey of survival, that was the trigger for me. How she processed this, I don't think I would have done the movie or played this role had that not been one, true, and two, how she overcame and survived
Yeah.
to and like truly survived. It's not like there's not there's a fairly um, uh, uh, I guess long and consistent record of people if they physically survive trauma and um, there's not they if they're not processing it, you carry it in your body and it manifests as illness or other forms of tragedy or other you have to really purge that
Yeah.
process, and that's important to learn. A lot of people overcome, so they think, but you carry that hate, you're not surviving.
Sure. Totally. No, that makes total sense. And because of the subject matter here, I think it's like Deathly Vows isn't like it's kind of a dark movie. I mean, it has a very hopeful message and like it's very good in how it presents everything, but like it's kind of a heavy watch. And I'll tell you that last night when I watched this movie, I immediately watched it and then went to the theater to see Lynn Ramsey's Die My Love. And that was a like heavy double feature. Like I came back from that and just like, whew, cinema can be dark sometimes, but
It can. It's a double whammy. You should have gone to like, a screwball comedy or just put on
Right. I
something
know.
much lighter. Peter Sellers.
But I also just think it's so important to like kind of tell these stories. And so my question is, I'm curious just kind of like how you approach this like as an actor. Like, is it kind of a similar process of when you're doing like an intense role or an intense movie like this compared to when you're doing like something more lighter or a comedy? Or to get into character, do you kind of have to go to like a similar place?
Well, I mean, the role I played was of a professional, a detective who's seen a variety of, tragedy and trauma and difficulty and criminality, and um, has clearly made it his life's work to try to offset that, right those wrongs, bring people to justice, uh, kind of help victims through their journey. So that, connecting to the nobility of Manny was not difficult. It was an honor. And the key was to create moments of humanity and maybe a little levity to kind of, comic relief. I dare to, I don't really want to use that term, but that round off a character like that and also provide elements for the film to kind of exhale and breathe a little bit with little asides and little beats that just, give you a break in the heavy stuff.
Yeah,
You
totally.
need?
Yeah. I think that totally comes across so well. Um, It kind of jumps into what I wanted to ask next is that Billy, you've just been around Hollywood for so long. You've worked with all kinds of legendary directors. I'm curious kind of what it was like working with the director of this movie, Jared, just because I mean, he's done a lot of like action and genre pictures in his past. What did you kind of feel like he brought to the table in order to tell this story, and how was that experience working with him?
Jared was great, consummate professional, um, who jumped on for the same reasons. We were all, as we say, grabbing an oar in the same boat, rowing towards the same shore, and for the right reasons. And um, you know, I think he had a take on it that was um, that was able to navigate, otherwise potentially treacherous waters. Bella had a strong creative hand in it. It was her story. And it was, yeah, I appreciate his emotional intelligence and experience in the process. It was a pleasure to work with him.